Hello, I am Sean Sands from Gamers with Jobs. Welcome back to more Factorio and Conversation. Um, we are exactly where I left off last time. You know, one thing that always annoys me is inevitably a game will say, "Hey, I've done like 10 things." And God, I've done it too in videos where it leaves off in a certain place and the guy comes back and says, "Hey, I did some just basic maintenance, boring stuff. I figured you wouldn't want to watch," and that's all done. And I inevitably think, I kind of would have wanted to watch that. I mean, I get why you say it's boring, and for like maybe half your audience, that's probably true. Um, but I don't watch that. So I kind of am operating on the assumption that since most of this is really about having a talk anyway, I'm not going to just leave a whole bunch of stuff and done and just kind of come back and like, oh, I built this whole section of this factory, so that's cool now. Um, I'm gonna assume that if you're with me, you're willing to stick with it to the bitter end, through good parts and boring, um, like where I'm just putting up these things. And why I'm putting these guys up is I did a bad job there. I want to put some lights down here. Factory floor needs good lighting. Firm believer. And it's getting dark already again, so we'll do that and that. And then we'll get to our topic here in a minute. But so yeah, I'm going to operate on the assumption like if we're in this together, and you're willing to kind of stick with me through moments when I'm just setting down a bunch of lights and some poles, and you're cool with that, because you're cool. And I just wanted to let you know. Let's do this here. I want that to be lined up. Are these not lined up? Oh, good grief. Or where I have to fix my poles because I did dumb with them. I made them bad. Um, so yeah, we're doing that here. But obviously, if you're like, I could do without the lights and the pole setting, you can let me know that too. I don't know that I will 100% change, but I'll keep it in mind. There we go. That feels okay-ish for now. I probably ought to set up another turret here too, particularly as we start to build out over here. And nope, not mining drills. I don't want mining drills. Combat. Can I not build a turret? I am out of iron plate. I just know just where to get some. Now we can build that and a bunch of magazines. I need to get some magazine production. I'd rather get the upgrade for magazines and then get some steady magazine production up and running, just so I'm not having to click that button a whole bunch every time. But in the short term, I think my focus is, I'm pretty sure we discussed this last time, to really finally go ahead and automate our science production. It's time. So we will take half of those. Excuse me. And we will put them in here. Lovely. Let's see. So I need to think for a second, and then we'll get into our topic. I want to build, first I want to build red, but I also want to be set up for green. So we'll need inserters and transport belt. So we'll probably need to split this, maybe bring some of it over here for red. Then how do I want to do this? Let me think for a second. I am going to split it. Kind of do some red over here and yellow maybe right down here. And then have a line of labs down here that everything's sort of feeding into, maybe? Because I don't want to spread more this way. That's going to be the bulk of what's getting shot. Do we have damage or just get hit briefly? Yeah, it's fine. It's holding up nicely. Because most of our actual really solid production is going to go this way. So I'm willing to kind of branch off a little bit, or maybe I don't create two branches. Maybe I keep this clean instead of having, because inevitably I'll have to put like one of these under another one. I want to avoid that as much as possible. So I think I will go ahead and just add another branch here. Nope, I do that every time. We'll do some here, here, and like that, and that. And we will break off this piece here. All right, while that's getting done, here's what I want to talk about. So story time a little bit. Long time ago, I worked in retail industry, and specifically, I worked at and helped manage a GameStop. And we're talking quite a while ago at this point. Certainly not something I've done recently or am, aching to do again anytime soon. I feel like this could be better lined up. Well, let's just start with here. And I don't want to kind of oversell that point. Like, it wasn't a bad job. I was far from, miserable. The job itself had its good moments and its bad moments. Like any job does. I'm not trying to kind of pass a bunch of judgment here. Like it's a job I'm glad I don't do anymore, but at the same time, it's not one that I feel like, I wish I'd never had to do that. Because there's nothing wrong with it, ultimately. There's nothing wrong with retail. And I'm really not kind of digging into a big, long retail discussion here either. But the reason I bring it up is I remember, can I just go down like this maybe? Zip. Yeah. And then, it's not clean, but that does okay. The reason I bring it up is because I very much remember, like I say, it was a while back. So keep that in mind as we dig into this. I remember the way we used to, when I first started, the way we would handle people who wanted to come in, and reserve their game was we had a little notebook that sat by the counter. And people would come in and say, hey, the new Descent is coming out, or I've heard of this game called Baldur's Gate. It sounds pretty cool. I'd like to reserve it. And we would then kind of write their name down. We had a page for each game that was there. And we would, write their name right in there. Okay, great. You want Baldur's Gate? Then we had a little Baldur's Gate page, and we would just kind of fill that up and get people written down in it. And then, the game would inevitably come out, and we'd give them a call, said, hey, looks like you had your name written down for this. And that was how. The reservation system, which is what this is all about, has been around a lot longer in one form or another than we think of it as. And for some of you, probably it's all you've ever known, or really, it's not something you think about very much. This idea that, you go in and say, I know this game is coming out and I want to make sure I get it. And so, how do I make sure that happens? That's been around for a lot longer than, a lot of the things I think we sometimes rightly get upset about the current model. For all those years, that was both a benefit, a thing that, I think a lot of people liked, but frankly, don't leave your cell phone on. You're not such an amateur thing to do. Sorry about that. It's not an amateur thing. But yeah, so the idea of reserving a game is based on this older notion of limited quantities, because a new game would come out, and to be fair, the makers of those games would have no really easy way of saying, hey, we think this many people are going to want to get a hold of our game. So how do we make sure that many people have access to it? Nobody ever called us and said, how many names are in your book? Or at least nobody from, like the publishers. We might get a call from our district manager or something like that, but it was really informal. And different stores sort of had different processes, not just, in different locations, but across companies. Best Buy. I don't think Best Buy had any way of sort of managing that system, a system like that. So they frankly just didn't. Okay, this is why this was bad. Because I don't actually need, what I just need now is copper. So I only need the iron up through here. So I think I am going to redo this a bit. Partly because it looks dumb. I don't like that. I didn't like what I did there. We're going to redo it. And now I have that thing buzzing. It just, everything beeping. Stop beeping at me, electronics. Very busy. I can get some lights here. So like I say, everybody did it a little differently. There was no, easy way for a company to say, hey, are people actually interested in this crazy EverQuest game that we've come up with? What are you expecting from that? Like, it just wasn't a thing that was that we could communicate, which is honestly where I think the whole reservation idea came from to begin with. It was very much so that companies, because that was the problem, is we would get a fixed amount in. We would get a new game and we'd get, 20 copies of it. And if we had 20 names in our book, well, that was it. Deal's done. It's all we got. And if we had no names in it and they sent us 20 copies, then inevitably we were going to be shipping some copies back, or just, having to try and figure out how to get through that inventory, which was also a problem. Nobody that didn't need to go down that way. How do I copy again? I'm trying to remember some button presses. I'll just have to remember it on my own. There's a way to copy from one factory to the next, and there's also a way to get the factories to show you what's in them. I'm trying to remember what that is. It feels like it's in here somewhere. Okay. Where was I? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that was just, it was a frustration to us in the stores. I mean, we wanted to sell people stuff, and they'd come in and, be like, well, why didn't you guys order, 100 copies? I could have told you this would be a huge game. And, you probably would have been right. But, there's no way to, even when you have, let's say 100,000 copies across 4,000 stores, you have enough copies to cover demand. How do you know how to distribute those? You don't distribute them evenly, right? The store in rural Oklahoma or, the middle of Wyoming doesn't need as many copies as the one in Manhattan. And the one in Minnesota or wherever doesn't need as many, or needs more than this store. And even within a single district, I live in Minneapolis, so we have the Mall of America here, which was an incredibly difficult store to kind of figure out how to stock properly, because some games would do great, but others wouldn't, even though there was, and this was in the heyday of malls, even though we had the Mall of America, people act differently in that mall than they do at, at one that's just in a local, not a local, but in like a suburb. It just, they don't act the same. So there was no easy way to say, here's the amount we need, which, frustrated us. It frustrated the publishers. It frustrated, the stocking, the people, within our company who was trying to keep us stocked appropriately. Everybody had a bad time with this, basically. Which is, I think, genuinely where this idea of, well, we'll just set up a system where people can pay us a little money, and then we'll make sure they have a copy of their game, came from, right? I think it came from a good place. I don't think it was ever, in its inception, intended to be this really defining sort of idea that game reservation has become. This idea of not just driving, the stocking, but really kind of being a fundamental way of, staffing not staffing, but stocking and determining, what you're going to make and how many you're going to make and how much effort and, not effort, but how much investment you're going to put into a game as, Activision or Take-Two or whomever. I don't know that they saw that far ahead. I don't know that anybody did, or that there would be reason to see that far ahead necessarily. It's certainly become something very, very, very different than it was. It wasn't, and as a result, I guess, I find it frustrating what it's become. I find it. I think this isn't, again, an idea that I think will be dramatically strange. No, these don't need to be these. These need to be something else. Strange to a lot of people. I don't think the idea that reservations can be frustrating and annoying, and at times seem incongruous to the way that really the gaming industry now works, is anything like a new idea. It's clearly one, but at the same time, I do think it provides an interesting value of information to people who make games. I think it indicates, yeah. So I'm thinking of this in terms of, games like, we're coming up now on, what is it? Almost halfway through May. And we're starting to get more and more information about the games that will be coming out later this summer, or even into the early, Christmas season. And realistically, I think there's a reason for that. Like there's a valuable point in having that kind of information now, which is that, in the development process, these games are just increasingly complicated and expensive to make. And for as much as I would love to just kind of operate under the idea that they just sort of happen on their own, or that companies make decisions primarily from a creative point of view, I think there's just, we don't live in that world, and let's not pretend to. It's kind of not silly, but certainly unrealistic to think that that's how the system works. Transport belt needs iron plate, iron gear. Maybe I bring this over here. Do I want to just pull from that constantly? Will I run out of it? Let's find out. And I need more of those. Again, also, as always, this is not a super efficient run by any means. As I think I've probably mentioned before, it's not easy to hold a coherent thought. Damn it. See, for example, right here, we need those iron gears. So maybe we bring that around and under, I guess, and back up. Do we need them here? Because this is producing red. These are outputting, and these are all producing red. So maybe I cycle this around and underneath, bring it down like this, back around, and up. Run it underneath here. Back up like this. It's a pole in the way. Get rid of a pole. And here? Sure. No, but I do want that there. Okay. Now, we want to make transport belt. So we need, we will have to run this over here. How do I want to do that? How do I want to do that? Do I want to just run them next to each other? It seems silly. It seems overly dense. But I'm not sure I have a choice. Can't run these around and plug them into here easily. Can I? I don't think so. I don't think I can. Yeah, I think we're just going to have to sort of brute force it. Like this. Hang on one second. I'll get back to my thoughts soon enough. And I guess I don't really need that one anymore. So we have two belts sort of running in opposition to each other, but I think that's just how we're going to have to do it. Leave that there and there. So one here. And we'll need some of these fast inserters. Where was I? So my point, what I'm really kind of trying to get at here is I feel torn about the modern operation of pre-reserves. And I guess there's a distinction that needs to be drawn between reserving something on console as opposed to reserving it on something like Steam. Because those two operate very differently and have different goals, right? It still makes sense to have a, it still makes sense to be creating reservations for something that's on console, at least for most of the rest of this generation. We'll see how it actually all ends up shaken out. I can't do this super cleanly, so maybe put that here. I'll take this one out. Put a light here. Because, I mean, a lot of people, certainly enough people, still just straight up buy their video games at a, at a Best Buy, at a GameStop, where that, that makes sense. It makes sense to have to make those same decisions that have always been intrinsic into this process, which is how do I stock the store appropriately so, my company doesn't go out of business. I don't need to be trying to figure out how to manage hundreds, if not, more pieces of inventory. I mean, overhead's a real thing. I had these the wrong way. But also not create a system where it's clearly just, it just exists to inflate a bottom line. Because here's something I remember, and this is, I guess, what got me thinking about it as a memory of a situation that I've just never have felt very comfortable with. So these will produce transport pipe. Not transport pipe, but yeah, what are they called? Transport pads, something like that. Transport belts is correct. And these are going to, transport belts. Transport belts for up here too. Okay, and I want to put inserters on this side so that they push out here. So we'll need a little more of those, a few more of those. So probably one here and one here. And then we can extend down sort of as needed. So the thing that always bugged me about it, and the thing that really eventually sort of turned me and soured me on the idea of reservations. I remember an event, and I don't think it was disingenuous. I don't think it was incorrectly handled, but where, damn it, more like, I guess, can we do these? What do you call them? Are super annoying to me, and I might have to make another one so it's. We're going to need another underground thing here. This is just super ugly. This is just spaghetti right now. And I realize that, but it's all right. That's part of the fun. It's just creating something, at least to me, that's almost nonsensical. It's almost like what mad scientist thought this was going to work? The answer's me. I thought this was going to work when I started. So we will do another one that comes, I guess, up. And how will that work? Let me figure that out. Like this. We'll do the same thing here. And this one will come this way. And I guess feed up. So we want these to create the inserters. Inserters need gear and plate. Once again, I would love to get gear and plate on the same belt. But I have my gear and plate coming in different directions. Unless I do this. Unless I spaghetti it up even more. Because why not at this point? There we go. Just bring that right on down. So like that, and then I need the electronic circuits, which I'll also have to make, which is iron plate and copper cable, which means I need copper cable, which means, oh, your layers of complexity annoy me. So what I want to ultimately do is get the inserters onto this part of this belt, and then have the green science makers like through here. So how do I do that? I think we're going to have to accept that that's not going to make the inserters right on. No, it needs to. So how do we get, what all do we need for inserters? We need 3 things for inserters, which is what makes it challenging. We have one belt that already has half of it. So now we just need to find a way to make green circuits. And honestly, we need a ton of green circuits anyway. Green circuit production is actually quite important. So we're going to hold that and just worry about green circuit production. Those of you with just refined builds, I'm so sorry. This must be exceedingly painful for you. I, as always, appreciate your patience. So the thing I've been trying to get to, what is this thing that eventually soured me on reservations? I remember this one night working for GameStop. And again, this isn't something where I'm like, oh, I'm revealing a big secret or it's super shady. It just did not feel comfortable to me. Where I think all the stores and store managers across the nation, essentially, were asked to go into our reservation system and review all the reservations that had just sat and languished and, over a significant number of months, if not years. So the problem with the reservation system, and the problem we always had, even with our notebook system, was we would call these people who had asked to be put on this notebook, and about half the time, they just wouldn't respond or wouldn't show up to get this thing. That was fine when it wasn't something they'd paid for, right? It just was like, okay, well, I guess that's kind of annoying, but so be it. It's no big deal. But the interesting thing is the same thing happened, and not to anything like I would call a much less extent, even for people who had put money down. So there were tons of time. And you've probably done it before and completely forgotten about it. I know I have, where people put down $5 or $10 or the whole price of a game, and they just never came and picked that up. It just fell off their radar. And as a result of that, we would have this money just, sort of sitting in the till or in the company's sort of bank account for months or years. And eventually, there's a question of when does that just become money that we can just claim, that we can just say, well, it's sort of the idea of the lost $10 on the ground. Somebody dropped $10, and I tried to take it to, the wherever, the lost and found or the police or whatever. And eventually nobody came for it. What's the point where somebody can say, well, I guess this is yours now? Because you do, that is the point that you are inevitably going to reach. So actually one of the first things we want to do is we want to build copper cable. And copper cable production is probably the thing we want over here. I'm going to do this a lot, where I just start building a thing and then decide I want it to look like something else. So I think we want to do copper first. See, we need room here. So we're going to have our output hopefully go here. Well, we'll need an additional input. which is going to come up maybe through here. Let's go ahead and be thinking about how we're setting this up. So this is going to come like this. And those will make the green science, and then pump them out somehow, I guess. Maybe right down here. They'll kick them out like this. And we'll figure out how they get back around here to click into this. Like I said, this is going to be spaghetti. Just bear with me. So that sets that aside, which means we will need... I think then we can set this up like this. So there was lots of this money sitting around and just nobody to claim it necessarily. And eventually, you know, a company has kind of got to say, well, I guess this has just been abandoned money. We've done it. We've called them a number of times. And so there was this long project where we went through all of our existing pre-reserves that we had taken at some point. And we did. We called those people one more time. And in a few cases, people were like, we have what? Yeah, let me just come get that money back. But in many, many cases, you know, we'd get a disconnected number, or, you know, that nobody by that name here, or they just wouldn't answer. Or they said they'd come get it, and they just never got around to it. And the thing I remember is this night where I just converted all this money into just essentially removing the reservation from the system. Again, I can't stress enough, that doesn't mean that if somebody hadn't come along later and said, oh, I didn't get this until now, can I have my money back? Like, we would have said, nope, too late, you missed it. This was not something nefarious. This wasn't, you know, just trying to swindle people out of that money. But we are talking about, at least in the case of my store, at times, you know, or not at times, I don't remember the exact number, but I remember it being a very large number of reservations that had just been abandoned, and now just sort of was the company's money now. And that just, it felt really like, it felt like sort of the worst example of the system at work, right? We had taken this money, and we had done it in good faith, and we had their product at some point, and we had called them, and we'd done everything we could to contact them. But ultimately, what had we done as a business to serve that customer? What had we done to give them value for that money that they had just sort of abandoned over the years? And was, you know, I remember just feeling sort of, you know, not emotionally, but ethically torn on that point. And it really just soured me in general on the whole idea of reservations. Because there is this component of it, which very much is taking some amount of money from someone and not giving them something directly in return for that money. And I've never been able to completely get away from that. I'm not sure I want to. I'm not sure I'm saying like, oh, I should just get over it. I think being cautious with money people have given you for a promise as opposed to a product, which doesn't mean just, you know, don't do anything for people who give you, you know, money for a product. But there's to my mind a certain due diligence that is appropriate and necessary if you are going to hold somebody's money without giving them a direct thing in return for that. And that was really where it changed for me. That was really the moment where it was like, you know, this system, I understand the purpose behind it and the goal behind it and the value it provides people. But there is a part of it which is just very much, you know, an effort to bring in dollars in advance of actually providing the thing that people are after for that money. And it always felt, not always, but it ever since then, it feels like something I don't like to be a part of. I don't want to be in that system that is doing that side of things. for better or worse. Like that's again, I can't. I'm far from trying to get on my high horse and here and say, companies are evil. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Maybe companies are evil. Maybe they're not. I'm not. I'm not really here to determine that at this point. But at the same time, particularly now where so much is in the digital space, where there's so much reservation that is, here, reserve this game that we absolutely aren't going to run out of stock for because data doesn't work like that. That's where I really start to struggle, because that feels like it has a different idea, a different kind of ethos and purpose behind it. It feels very much like we got really used to this idea of you pay us money before we provide you a product, and we like that a lot. So let's find a way to keep doing it, even though the intelligent rationale behind the choice to do that has evaporated, even though the reason to do that doesn't exist in the way it once did. It feels like a real change to me, something that's fundamentally different about that process that I can't quite square the way I would want to. I wish this line was, no, this is fine because I can run it here, and then down and around. Ugh, spaghetti. No, I'm not going to run it down and around. I'm going to run it. What am I going to do with this? That's going to be weird. Okay, well, maybe we'll just kick him out one extra. So yeah, I don't know. That's I'm gonna move. I'm gonna end up moving my science producing. I'm probably just going to move this all down so that I don't have it running over itself. So I think the real problem is trying to navigate around this, which we'll figure out. One of the real problems. Now I'm sort of overproducing in some ways my what do you call it? My electronic circuit production here. This is far more than I will need for completing my green science, but I'm actually going to run green circuits back up here into the main bus as well. There. Now kicking them back out, actually, we're going to have to, I'm not sure this works quite the way I want it to. Might have to stagger them one at a time because I'm going to need 3 inserters on this side, and that doesn't quite give me coverage. It gives me coverage there, it gives me coverage there, but it doesn't give me coverage in these last little segments that I need. So what am I going to do? Am I going to double up maybe? Okay, let's work here. Okay, it works for this one, and then maybe I actually run this. No, because I need it there. This side, I hate that. Might have to do this. Nope. Changed my mind. I do want that one there. I don't want this one here. I don't want this one here, and I don't want this one here. There's a better way. I've seen another way for setting this up that's a very interesting little staggered way, almost like a pyramid, where the factories are directly feeding each other. Which is kind of a cool way to do it too. Again, that takes more thought and sort of more quiet time on my part than I'm working with right here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then run this down a little more. Okay, and yeah, they're going to feed directly back out to this direction. So we need a bunch of these kinds of inserters, which means we need more of this and more of this. So just to kind of close out the thought, which again, may be coherent, maybe not. I don't know. I tried. The more we've gotten away from the original idea, and just the way that I've seen companies act when working with this money that people have provided in good faith, I just don't have the confidence I wish I did that the activity matched the intent. That what the output is went along with what it's supposed to be. I just wish I had more confidence in that, because it doesn't always feel that way. It just doesn't. Let's see. Is this going to produce enough copper wire to fuel this? Maybe eventually. I mean, once it starts cooking along, are they getting all the way down? Not with a lot of extra, but yeah, okay, good. Well, only because we're not producing these at a quick rate now. I will split it off here, and I will run one of these immediately back up. And I will run it underneath from there at some point. I'm interested in what you think. Like, how do you, at the risk, oh, wait. I know what I want to do. I want to do something different here. That's not what I want to do. I want to actually do this like that. So we get both sides. And yeah, we don't have enough copper production here. So we'll probably have to build at least one more copper factory. And we'll have to figure out how we want to do that. We may just feed this directly into here. And we already had one of those. That's okay. Nope, that doesn't work. Maybe more like this. And replace this. Does that leave us room to build one more factory up here? Yes, I think. Yeah. Okay, and this makes copper wire. We'll need to power it. This power system's kind of a mess. That will help, hopefully, a little bit. And good. So we've started to build our what do you call this stuff? Our green circuit production. We are getting close to being able to automate our technology. We have just a gross spaghetti system of stuff over here, but it's okay. We'll get there. Don't worry. And we'll figure out a way to clean it up once we've kind of got everything in place, or we won't, and we'll just go with this, and that's fine. On the topic of reserves, I don't think there's anything out there that's surprising to be as a gamer saying, I kind of hate reserves. I feel like they're kind of ripping me off a bit. Because I do. I mean, I feel like the model that it's gone to clearly has just eliminated the illusion of a system that is intended to work to help provide a service that is lacking. It just doesn't look anything like that anymore, and I think that's unfortunate. I'm interested in your thoughts. Do you pre-reserve stuff? Does it not bother you? Is it just it's kind of the cost of doing business? How do you feel about reserving things that are for download only? Does that make sense? Does it make sense to kind of withhold benefits like extra art or skins or whatever, just to kind of entice that, that approach to getting people to buy your game. So yeah, let me know what you think. Drop a line in the comments. I've been really interested. I've been trying and this hasn't been hard because you guys have brought up a lot of really good questions. I've been trying to be really conscious about, getting back in touch with people. If you leave something, like, I'll let you know what I think about it. And I really do appreciate those of you who have taken the time to let me know what you thought and give me your feedback, because I found that interesting. We had a really good conversation about the power of words discussion. Like, I thought those comments were absolutely fascinating. I have this whole idea where somebody brought up tribalism as a component of it. That like sparked like 10 different thoughts in me. I might cover at some point. But until then, this has been Factorio Conversation. Yeah, don't look at that. It's terrifying and ugly, but I think it'll work. Until next time, my name is Sean Sands from Gamers with Jobs. As always, thank you for joining me for this episode, and we will see you real soon.